In his final tablet to America, Abdu'l-Bahá presented a striking historical pattern of how the covenant tends to unfold. Consider, the divine gardener cuts off the dry or weak branch from the good tree and grafts to it a branch from another tree. He both separates and unites. This is that which His Holiness Christ says, that from all the world they come and enter the kingdom, and the children of the kingdom shall be cast out. This is a reference to the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 8, where His message was clear. None of us should get too comfortable because we're not exempt from error just because of our heritage or our religious affiliation. In Romans 11, the Apostle Paul elaborates on what Jesus was really getting at. Using the same metaphor of God as a kind of divine gardener, he writes that those Jews who rejected the Messiah were cut off from the covenant, and the Gentiles who accepted him would be grafted in. He goes on to warn the Christians not to get too cocky, because they could just as easily get cut off should they fail their tests. We can see an echo of this pattern in the Bahá'í Faith. Shoghi Effendi was a branch from another tree, grafted into Baha'u'llah's covenant after Muhammad Ali, the natural son of Baha'u'lláh, was cut off for his disloyalty. This is why Shoghi Effendi was referred to by Abdu'l-Bahá as the chosen branch. He was from another tree because through his father, Shoghi Effendi was not an Aghsan, but an Afnan, a male descendant of the Prophet Muhammad through the Bab. Through his mother, he was the grandson of Abdu'l-Bahá and a direct descendant of Baha'u'lláh. Baha'u'lláh himself had foretold such a figure. O Afnan, O thou that hast branched from mine ancient stock, my glory and my loving kindness rest upon thee. Thy day of service is now come. This verse was fulfilled in Shoghi Effendi, an Afnan, but also branched from Baha'u'llah's ancient Davidic lineage. In his Book of the Covenant, Baha'u'lláh had made provision for two individual successors. The first was Abdu'l-Bahá, the second was to be Muhammad Ali, but because he broke the covenant, Abdu'l-Bahá replaced him with Shoghi Effendi in his will and testament. Both Abdu'l-Bahá and Shoghi Effendi were endowed with what is often translated as infallibility, but more accurately rendered from the Arabic term ismat as protection from error. This isn't really about personal perfection. It's a spiritual safeguard, ensuring that when acting in their divinely appointed capacity and under the covenant, their guidance would remain aligned with God's will. But what happened after the second leader passed? The covenant had already provided the answer. After Shoghi Effendi, the faith was to be led by the Universal House of Justice, a divinely ordained institution composed of an elected legislative body and an appointed executive head. That head was the enduring institution of the guardianship, as the Will and Testament states. The guardian of the cause of God is the sacred head and the distinguished member for life of that body. These two aspects were to work together in unity. As Abdu'l-Bahá wrote, the legislative body must reinforce the executive. The executive must aid and assist the legislative body, so that through the close union and harmony of these two forces, the foundation of fairness and justice may become firm and strong. Neither branch is expendable. In fact, Shoghi Effendi warned, divorced from the institution of the guardianship, the world order of Baha'u'lláh would be mutilated, and permanently deprived of that hereditary principle which, as Abdu'l-Bahá has written, has been invariably upheld by the law of God. This system, an institution combining a hereditary executive guardianship with a representative legislative body, was designed as the new vessel for that protection from error that was conferred upon the first two leaders of the faith. The guardianship wasn't meant to expire. It was designed to endure as a central feature of Baha'u'llah's universal house of justice. And Shoghi Effendi set it all in motion. But after his sudden passing in 1957, the covenant faced its greatest test yet. Would the believers recognize what had already been set in place by Shoghi Effendi, or would they follow those who, whether through confusion or contempt, veered from the divine blueprint? This wasn't just about administrative continuity. It was about preserving a covenanted kingship that stretched all the way back to Abraham, a throne confirmed through David, reaffirmed by Christ, and renewed in this day through Baha'u'lláh. In the next episode, we'll examine the appointment of the American Charles Mason Remey, the rejection of that appointment, and the spiritual consequences of forsaking God's plan. For more information, visit schooloftheland.com, where history's oldest promise meets humanity's future.